It's summertime, and what's better in the summer than listening to some hard rock? And today I'm going to be doing the first of the summer of guitar-based rock. And what's that all about? It's a bit of a mouthful, but what it is I'm going to be reviewing some albums that I think are brilliant summer albums. Albums to listen to when the sun is shining, when you've got a cold beer in your hand and you're listening to some hard rocking tunes. Now, these albums also are from a time where, things were a little bit easier, a bit more relaxed, This was the time of the 80s, and this was the time of the guitar hero. We don't get many guitar heroes anymore, but back in the late 80s and early 90s, there was loads of them. And so what I'm also doing with these albums, I'm showcasing a definite guitar hero. Now, maybe it's in the album itself or in the actual band. And there's some of these reviews that you'll find that are not the most sort of common guitar heroes that are around. So that's my little introduction to the summer of guitar rock. So what is the first album? Well, keep on watching to find out. Welcome back to Rocker's Beer Review. Today we're going to be doing the first review of the summer of guitar rock heroes. I need to come up with a catchier title for that. Maybe by the time I've done my thumbnail and done the thing, I will have a better title. But this is what we call summer rock music with a real guitar hero theme. And the first is for Flying in a Blue Dream by Joe Satriani. Satriani, many people will know him as a guitar virtuoso supremo. The sort of guy that makes high shred, big instrumental guitar albums. But back in 1989, he released an album called Flying in a Blue Dream. That was the first album that he did, and hasn't done any since then, which featured him singing on quite a number of tracks. It makes the whole album a lot more accessible to basically just fans of rock music. And to me, it was the best thing I'd heard for a long time. It introduced accessible instrumental guitar playing with also sort of rocking songs. So it was one of those sort of albums that you can get into very easily. And for me, there was lots of different styles. So there was real straight head rockers. There was more melodic instrumentals, there was ballads in there. There was not only there was a lot of showcasing of the guitar, but also showcasing of things like banjo and harmonica as well. A real bluesy sort of tinge to the album. But what at the end of the day is an album that anyone who likes good rock music should enjoy. So, as I said, this album was released in 1989, in October of 1989, and by January 1990 it was certified as gold. That's 500,000 copies sold. It was one of the highest charted albums by Joe Satriani and was nominated for a Grammy for the Best Instrumental Rock Performance. Now, the album starts off with two instrumentals. The first is the dreamy title track, Flying in a Blue Dream. There's lots of melodic guitar playing. Joe is quite unique in his sort of composition, really, because although it's an instrumental, there is a distinct sort of vocal line where instead of hearing the vocals, you hear Joe's stunning lead guitar playing. And I think it gives all the sort of necessary hooks that you'd expect with a singer on those sort of songs, but without going into like 1,000 notes shred fest, really. The second track showcases Joe's more sort of funky style. This is called the quite baffling titled Mystical Potato Head Groove Thing. And to be honest, when you hear the song, that's probably the best title he could come up with. It's catchy, it's accessible, but shows off all of Joe's chops, but it's got a real strong groove, a real funky sort of sound to it, without becoming too self-indulgent. Things change a little bit with track 3. This is the first of the vocal tracks. Now, Joe not only plays all the instruments, all the guitar on this album and a lot of the other instruments, but he also does the singing as well. Now, his voice isn't quite as good as he's playing, but it's still got a nice sort of bluesy lilt to it, and it suits the songs really well. This song, third song on the album, Can't Slow Down, is a straight ahead rocker. And again, it's really accessible. If you like rock music, you'd love this song. It doesn't go over the top in terms of its playing. It just has got a nice sort of structure with verse and chorus, but with an absolute blistering guitar solo. But as I said, it's all about this. Joe never really sort of overindulges on any of the sort of vocal tracks here. It's all about the song, and the song is really great. Then we go into some instrumentals. Headless is a little short instrumental, very sort of experimental sort of sound with almost like a spoken guitar sound. And then leads into the next sort of vocal song, which is called Strange. This is a real sort of mid-pace, funky rocker. Again, never overplays the guitar playing throughout the verses and chorus, but does let rip with an absolutely incredible funky and then very shreddy guitar solos. There's also some great bass played on this song. This is by the bass supremo Stu Hamm. After the pretty funky vocal track Strange, Joe takes his hand to a proper ballad this time, again with singing. This song's called I Believe. It's got a real heartfelt sort of vocal performance. Probably his best vocal performance on the album, and again the guitar playing is very tasteful, but it's refined and there's lots of little bluesy flourishes throughout. And the solo though, I mean, it's amazing. You listen to it and you think, how does he make that sound? And actually it's probably due to the fact that when he recorded it, he recorded the solo and then put it down on tape backwards, so it's a backwards solo, but it sounds really good and fits the song brilliantly. Then we pick up pace with a sort of summary instrumental One Big Rush. It's a sort of breezy guitar instrumental that you expect to hear at a racetrack. We see racing cars race round. I'm not even sure whether I imagined it. I don't think there was a video for it because it's a reasonably short song. But when you listen to it, that's what it sounds like to me. It sounds like a song played, a summary racetrack instrumental, which I'm sure has been used on a number of TV and films on their score. Then we hit into the second side, and back in the day when we used to have second sides, I bought this album pretty much soon after it came out on cassette tape. So I'm still thinking of side one and side two. Side one is the big vocal song. It's probably the one that most people have heard of. This is called Big Bad Moon. It's a big bluesy rocker. And, as I said, it's got lots of nice bluesy singing on it. There's loads of real shreddy guitar on it. But there's also some other solos which aren't by the guitar. It's a harmonica solo. So he almost has this duel between a harmonica solo and a shreddy guitar solo. And then just when you thought there couldn't be any more sort of solos, he also has a bit of a slide guitar solo as well. It's a really tremendous song. And for me, I always remember hearing it when I saw Joe Satriani live at the Hammersmith Odeon back in the early 90s. And there was just me and my pal Matt that decided we would stand up for this song and headbang when no one else was. It really has some great memories for me, that song. Then things calm down a bit with The Feeling, which showcases Joe's sort of banjo playing. Again, this is where there's more instrumental. Talked about the harmonica, but there's also a lot of banjo in some of these instrumental songs as well. It's quite strange and quite short. And then that goes into an even stranger and again more funkier song called The Phone Call. It's a vocal performance, but he's actually recorded it through a phone, so it's a bit of a funny song really, and probably the weakest song on the album. Then we have Days of the Beach, which is in hyphens, Nude Rays from an Ancient Sun. It's great titles for these instrumentals. This highlights Joe's sort of two-hand tapping technique, very reminiscent of people like Eddie Van Halen. And it, for some reason, again, you listen to it, it makes you feel like you're sitting on the beach and the sun's beating down on you. That's what he does with his instrumental songs. He makes them very accessible and very sort of tuneful. It doesn't go into a massive overblown guitar solo. It's not like a 3-minute guitar solo and that's the instrumental. There's definitely a structure to the actual song as well. Then we get another instrumental track called Back to Shalabao. This sort is a real rocker, and again it's quite similar to that One Big Rush, but it's quite short and it's very accessible. And these songs, I never get bored of listening to them, even though they're little instrumental sort of songs. Some of the other instrumentals are 3-4 minutes long, but some of them are like 1.5-2 minutes long, and I never really bore of them. And I just think that they've got the structure of a song, but without the vocals. Then we've got the last of the vocal tracks, and this is called Ride. It's again, he likes to do these sort of bluesy, funky sort of songs. There's a mid-pace rocker, some great solos, and again, I'm sure that harmonica is in there as well. Then we've got the next two songs that are split into two parts. Both of them are two-parters and they're both instrumentals. And these are some of the best guitar instrumentals ever recorded, whether by Joe Satriani or anyone basically in that sort of hard rock guitar orientated arena. The Forgotten Part 1 again shows off Joe's sort of little two-hand tapping technique, and it always sounds like he's playing bass on this sort of track. Then part 2 is a real emotional roller coaster. I mean, it's a track full of real dreamy guitar, soundscapes, virtuoso playing, but full of a melody and technical ability. It builds and builds, and there's a big crescendo really. And it's probably not only one of my favourite instrumental, it is one of my favourite instrumental tracks. Certainly one of my favourite Joe Satriani tracks, not just on this album, but on any of his albums. So The Forgotten Part 2, that's the song you really need to listen to. It's really great. Then we got Belzlau. Again, this is a two-parter. The first part, again, sounds like a sort of guitar's been reversed a little bit and altered in some sort of mind-bending way. And then part 2 kicks off. And what strikes you about it is there's a real slap bass type of intro to it, and that bass line runs all the way through the album, through this song, sorry. And again, Stu Hamm, who I mentioned before, who did the song, who played bass on the song Strange, also plays bass on this, and it's almost like a virtuoso bass performance by him. But the song again, it's a build. It has this sort of slow build where you can feel that it's coming up to going to hit a crescendo. There's lots of whammy bar by Joe Satriani on this, lots of sort of the speed picking techniques as well. Really showcases all the sort of instrumental tricks and wizardry that's in his arsenal really. Then the last track of this 64-minute album is Into the Light. It starts with a sort of church organ, and then it leads into a very sort of ethereal sort of guitar sound and ends the album in almost a triumphant way. It's a real masterpiece, this album, and it's a great ending with Into the Light. So that's Flying in a Blue Dream. It's probably the most accessible to any guitar loving rock fans. Whether you're a guitar player yourself or not, you'll get there's a lot of quality here, and it's a very, very accessible album. If you've got any interest in guitar, if you like the players like, Steve Vai or Eddie Van Halen, or any sort of those big sort of guitar, even people like Slash and John Sykes and a lot of those great guitar players, then you'll love this album. It doesn't overindulge in guitar wizardry. There's lots of different styles and lots of different moods, and it keeps you interested from the first minute to the last. So that's my review of Flying in a Blue Dream by Joe Satriani. Let me know if you're a fan of Joe Satriani. Let me know in the comments what's your favourite Joe Satriani album. Do you maybe prefer Surfing with the Alien, which is the album that came before it, which is also another big, although no vocal songs on it, was another big sort of breakthrough album for Joe Satriani, and I know a lot of people really like the tracks on that album. But let me know what you think of Joe Satriani. Is he the best guitar player of all time? Maybe that's a big statement to make, but I think he's, as much as we know that his technique and his ability is up there, the way that he can make songs accessible to non-guitar players, I think is where his real strength lies. So I hope you enjoyed this first review of the Summer of Guitar Rock. I still need to work on a better title for that. We've got a few more coming as well from some other artists. I'm not going to reveal them yet. You just have to, if you're not already a subscriber, please subscribe. Like the video if you like the content I'm providing. And until the next one, keep on rocking.